Hi, everyone. We're going to have a chat today with this month's artist, Maria Alejandra Bulla. I'm going to invite her now. Hi, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So, so Maria created the video and the postcard for this month. So I have like a couple questions. They're beautiful pieces that you created, and I would love to talk about how they came together and what you were thinking. First, though, I would love to hear about your background in music and also crafting, because you have these two practices that not everyone combines. So how did you come to each, and when did you realize that they could come together?
Oh, that is. I think I've never thought about this before. Um, Definitely the crafts came first.
Mm.
Since I was like a little girl. I think I learned how to like do knit and sew things before even I knew how to write. Well, maybe not knitting, but definitely sewing came before writing. And and it was always there, like on the side, it was more like a hobby, maybe.
Mhm.
And then when I started like the professional music pathway when I was 13 or something like that. Um, and they were never combined until a couple of years ago. It was more like a happy accident, I would say. Like when I started to write music, it became very useful to know how to, I don't know, how to spell something or how to even draw something very basic. It was like, oh, this actually helps. And then I guess like a year and a half ago or something like that, uh, I realized, well, I can do both things. Why not try to put
Oops, sorry. My phone
Oh,
my had a little panic attack.
everything happened for a
So you were
second.
saying you realized you could do both things. So
Yeah, it was like, uh, I mean, I really don't know how it happened, but it was like, well, I can try to combine these and try to put this in this course that I do. Um, I know how to, I don't know, to crochet. So let's put something like a crochet flower inside a score. And, and, and I was like super happy doing that. And yeah, and at some point I just couldn't stop doing that. So yeah.
well, it's beautiful how fully they kind of combine together, and it makes me, you know, you give a lot of them as gifts to people. So like when we were working together, it was one of these magical things. You came over for filming, and you gave both Cassie and I these beautiful little box in a box, and it says on it, I think we found some music in the gaps, and these kind of come out. And then on the inside, there's a mirror, and this one has some stitching on it. And then on the inside, you can see a flower and another small poem that says, well, I love it because you have to kind of turn them around. So like they're very much involved, right? You don't just like, oh, I can read this. So it says on
Yeah.
the inside, a handmade revolution, I believe. And it's just this kind of thing that you interact with, and it's not overtly sonic, right? This is not, you know, I'm not hearing anything when I look at these, but they
Yeah.
make me think of sound. And I wondered if you could talk about kind of how um, imagined sound plays into your work, and sound, but sound that kind of is either silence or how you kind of process the time with these objects that makes you think about the sounds that you hear around you?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that because I think that it's actually an important thing in what I do, and it's that I really, really believe there are so many different ways of listening that are not through our ears. Like I believe that when you're reading text that makes you imagine a lot of things, that is making sound inside of you, and um, and that is to me a little bit the meaning of the music in the glass. It, I think there's like music everywhere probably, and you just have to find it in the hidden places, in the interstices, in the not obvious place, and sometimes the music that you can actually hear is not well, it's not giving you a lot of room for you to listen to other things and to like to really process everything inside of you. But when you're able to imagine the sounds and you're able to to have like an inner process and create a whole space inside of you in which you can create your own sounds and your own experiences, everything is a bit more personal. And that is actually one of the reasons why a lot of those objects don't make a very evident sound. I choose materials that are on purpose very quiet, like because I want to make very evident the idea of this is not about the sound that this object is making. This is about the sound that is happening inside of you, and and silence is some sort of space that you create, and and you can like put things inside of that, and that is the kind of music that I am interested about right now. Maybe that will change tomorrow.
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting, because in so many ways, this crafting element of your practice is such a like, there's like the makers movement and this like do it yourself and all of these like doing things with your hands. And because a lot of your work is so tactile and you have people doing things with their hand, there is a real kind of an invitation to co-create, which is really apparent in it, and a kind of prompting to listen differently. I wanted to show, you talked about very purposely making things that don't make a lot of sound. And this is this was another part of this box gift that Maria gave me. It's a pouch and it says, "In all possible worlds, I carried a spaceship in my pocket." And it is a little pocket. And when you open it, I'm going to try to hold it up so you can see. There are crocheted little weighted balls, and they have heft to them. There's like, I don't know how much they weigh, but they're not like fluffy light. They look light, but they feel heavy. And they don't make any sound, but there is this like feeling of holding them that is very special feeling and does make you kind of ponder your space a little bit differently. So along those lines, though, you are such like kind of a tactile. So much of your work has this very tactile nature. What was it like then to create for a more digital space for this video? And honestly, probably over the last year, in a lot of ways, things have moved online. How did that shift your practice or the way you thought about things?
Well, that is very interesting because I think one happened because of each other. Like they happened at the same time. Like I started to put a lot of energy in the handmade things at the same time that everything became virtual. And it was like, I think inside of me, it was some kind of desire of not making this whole pandemic year a virtual year. It was like all my classes were online and all my relationships became online and everything was a folder in my desktop, in my laptop desktop, and I just felt bad about that. Like I wanted to have like some sort of physical proof of I was creating something, and also like it. I like to write things by hand, and then I like to do a lot of things like actually, yeah, like using my hands, just because I feel like if I don't use them, they're going to like die inside and be like sad because I'm not using them or something like that. But anyway, sorry, silly me. Um, I Yeah, when I started creating all these things, at the beginning it was just like everything was sitting in my desktop, and maybe sometimes I just took pictures to share with some friends or something like that, but it was something that I had. And then I had like the need to perform somehow. I was like, I want to keep performing, but I just don't want to do it. I want to put those things together. So I started to do performances using the elements that I was creating with my hand. Uh, so that's why they merged into the
Yeah.
same practice, I guess. And that is kind of the same thing that I did with the video. Like it was a very everything is handmade, like 100% handmade. Um, but I knew it was going to be a video, and I knew it was going to be a digital um, outcome. And and I guess it's like we have to find a balance between how to do the things that make us happy, and how to learn how to share them with the world in a moment in which there are so many physical barriers. And just like sometimes you just have to be grateful for the internet and be grateful because of be grateful that computers exist and video cameras exist, and after all we all as humankind, we all have created all these like together things.
Hmm.
So it's just like accepting what you don't like and try to put all the love that you have inside of you and put it there. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you made both the video and the postcard this month, and they're both called the same title. So do you see them as one piece or partners, or how do they kind of connect together? And I'm going to show um, the postcard here. I think things are backwards, but this is the postcard. And then the very cool thing about it, which we'll share more about on Instagram in the coming weeks, is that Maria designed it so that it becomes a sculpture when you cut and fold it, which is very special. But that and the video are both called We Will Hear the Music Coming. So how do you see them relating to each other?
Well, I feel like they're two aspects of the same thing. Mm, everything I usually start like all my processes creating a text. It can be sometimes it's a very complicated like diagram or whatever. Sometimes it's a simple question. Sometimes it has the form of a poem or something like that. Um, but talking about this that we were just talking about, the text and the video that I created for the for the video, I felt like they needed like a place to stay in the physical world, if that makes sense. Like all those little elements that you have been like sharing. Uh, when I create them, I give them to people to have with them in their houses, because I believe they can be a reminder every day of like this is sitting there, and it might be silent all the time or most of the time, but when you notice it and when you read the text and when you hold it with your hands, uh, maybe something happens inside of you. And I feel like that is the same relationship between these two things. Like this this postcard that becomes a little box might be the space you can in which this video exists in a way. Mm, it's kind of like I always feel like I need a material to, yeah, like a physical object to contain what is inside the brain or something like that. It's almost like a representation of something that lives inside my brain, but sometimes my brain or our brains are too busy in like life, and we need little containers around us to put everything that we love and that we need to be reminded of the
Mm.
time.
So it creates like an anchor and a trace of
Yeah, yeah, totally.
beautiful. Well, you brought up the poetry and the text that you start with. In the video, I'd love for you to talk some about the poetry because it's very striking, and I think not in a way that invites a lot of contemplation, which makes sense with a lot of what you've been talking about, of like this inner world of music and this co-creative kind of aspect of it. So you talk one that was particularly striking to me is you talk about building silence in the text of the video. Can you talk about that idea more?
Sure. Yeah. So the text then we'll hear music coming. Oh yeah, and we will carry the silence of the place we have been building.
That's right.
Um, I have little obsessions with words, with certain words, and and I can tell you the three words of last year. They were notice, and then there was listen, and carry was the next one. Um, and and I feel like we need to carry some things, and we cannot forget those things. But then someday I realized maybe the most important thing to carry is to carry the silence, because the silence is the willingness to listen.
Mm.
And if you carry that willingness to listen, you pretty much carry everything that is important. You know, like everything changes and the world is so crazy. But if you carry that silence, and I mean, if you carry that space in which you can sit and listen, and you are willing to pay attention to the changing world, like, I feel like everything kind of makes sense if you are able to do that. Um, but the other part of that is that we're just like the people who are living right now in this planet are just very few million. I don't know how many people are living right now, but there are so many people that have lived before us, and there will be so many people that will live in the future. And this place is not built just by us, the living ones. It's built by history, it's built by all the people that have lived before us, and we're just continuing that place that they have started. We continue, and then someone else will continue that. But again, I feel like in that space or that place, the most important thing is the silence, because it's the willingness to let new things to come in and to happen and to change. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. Sorry if I went a little too.
No, it's beautiful, and it does. I think it's important to note that when you talk about silence, it's like a willingness to listen. And, because we have our legacies of people who have shown that silence isn't actually like an absence of all sound, but this kind of willingness to space. It's a very beautiful way of. And when you made the audio for this piece, can you talk about what sounds you chose and why they felt like good sounds for this?
Yeah, sure. So the the audio has like basically three elements, um, and everything like started with the field recording. Like a field recording is uh, what puts everything together, I believe. And it's just a field recording of the place where I was living for the past 2 years until a couple of weeks ago. I was living there in Valencia, California, and it I have a strange relationship with that place in which I was living because it's very close to a freeway, but at the same time you're surrounded by uh, like a golf court, and there are only houses in that area, so you still get to listen to a lot of nature, but the freeway is always there, and I really loved that, like the combination of sounds that was there. And the reason why I chose to record that and to use that field recording is because that is the kind of field recording that I believe is in the edge of nothing is happening and a lot of happening. A lot of things are going on at the same time. Um, a very funny a very funny thing happened to me when I was listening to that recording and like mixing the piece there and here in where I am right now. It was like a lot of the times I wasn't sure if I was listening to the recording or if I was listening to the actual sounds of the place where I was. And that is kind of the magic of that kind of recording that is like so normal, that is so special at the same time. And so that is really related to the silence aspect of this piece. And it's like in which moment the sound of the sound that is surrounding us becomes silence because of our relationship to it. Um, so yeah, that was like the first part, and then I feel like that is in the center, and then if we go to one side, there are the beautiful sounds of the pages turning of the book. I really love the sound of tracing paper. It's like one of my favorite sounds ever. It's just like it's such a loud paper, but the sound is at the same time very delicate and very detailed. And I have to thank you and Cassia for making such a beautiful recording of that. I believe that you captured very nicely the sounds of that book. And on the other like side, we have the sounds that I added with my synthesizer, just like sine tones. And the reason why I like to add sine tones to field recordings a lot of the times is just it's because I feel like they are a little bit like the forgive me because I'm gonna say something very silly, but I I like to imagine sounds that I have no idea well, how they sound. And I spend a lot of time imagining the sounds of the brain when someone is thinking or when someone is reading a book or when someone is imagining something like the brain inside has to be making some sort of sound. because there is like electricity and there are frequencies in there, and there has to be some sort of sound. And I believe that, I don't know, sometimes I feel like they look like sine tones. And that is somehow, for me, it's somehow the representation of what is happening outside is having an impact inside. And and I guess that is kind of the role of the sine tones.
Mm.
There that I use in like most of my pieces. By the way, it's just like I love using sine tones. Yeah, that is the sound. That's it.
Beautiful. And you, something that you realize as you're listening is that the sound is shifting. I think it's really beautiful to listen on headphones because you have it pan slowly from right to left, I think. And at first you're like, what's happening? And then it dawns on you that the sound is traveling with the pages. And how did you think of that and what does that kind of mean for you?
Uh, yeah, so that is because I have been obsessed with the concept of time in books
Mm.
a lot. Like I don't have books here, but let's say this is a book. Um, I it's just I feel like it's very magical the fact that you in a book you have the beginning and the end at the same time.
Mm.
And that kind of freaks me out a little bit. It's like how can time be contained in a box like this? And actually, one of my all-time heroes is Carl Sagan, and he has like this beautiful quote in Cosmos. I don't remember what episode Cosmos, but he says something like books are the living proof that humans are capable of doing magic,
Mm.
and I think that is very moving. Um, so when I wanted to translate, or translate is not a nice word, but when I wanted to convey that same feeling of the time in that I feel like is so evident in books to a time-based piece, which is a video, um, I wanted to somehow to show that the activity is happening where the book pages are. You
Mm.
know, so when all the book pages are closed, everything that is making sound is making sound on this side. But as we turn the pages and as the activity is happening, the sound is moving through to the other side, the sound ends up here because well the activity happened somehow. So my understanding or my hope when I put the sound like and I make it shift from one side to the other is like there is like the past, there is the future, but then when the sound of the book or of the video is not there anymore, all you have is the present sound of you of your space, and so you are in your constant book of life in which all your sounds are present with you. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna go
Fascinating.
over.
Fascinating to hear. I mean, first of all, I love that you described the book as another box, and this theme of boxes, like, is so fascinating and rich. And that you related it to time and beginning and ends, because uh, it gives me a new way to listen to the piece. Because I was thinking a lot about how the audio gave a weight to the book that was really interesting. So there was almost an added sense of touch, like that you felt the heaviness of the book move from one side to the other through sound. So it's interesting to see the relationship kind of drawn between this like touch and weight, but then also how it relates to the sense of time and beginning of ends. It's a really beautiful
Yeah.
tapestry of ideas that you kind of connected together. Um, yeah. And I also, so I along those lines, so you made this book, and we have actually on our Instagram feed a lot of images of you making it, so that people can really understand like the kind of the physicality that went into these pieces. But also you went through a lot of iterations when you were making it. You had like prototypes, and then you would end. And I wanted to ask kind of what drove those changes and that kind of prototyping and amending and changing process.
Yeah, that has a very simple explanation, I believe, and it's the fact that I like to believe that I think out loud with my hands. You know, like I almost never plan things a lot. I just do them. and 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 of course, like the first version of everything that I do, I mean, almost every time it's kind of an ugly version of what ends up happening. But it's just that is the main reason. It's just because I just do something. Well, as I told you before, I usually start with the text or something like that. And then once I have the text, I want to make that into like a real life object. And then I just do it. And of course, when you don't plan a lot and you just do, well, there are a lot of things that can go wrong in a way. Um, I mean, not because they are wrong, but just because they are not conveying like the idea that you want to show. So once I have like the first like prototype of us of something that I want to do, I like ask them, I like to spend some time with the object and play with it and feel it and try different things and then ask myself, well, does it work with the idea that I want to show or not? Or how is it being efficient or fulfilling its purpose? And then I start to do another version and another version, and sometimes just that is just there are too many versions, and sometimes it's very like, well, this is it, and sometimes I just do one version and that's it, and that I mean that doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened. So yeah, I guess it's when I feel like it is being clear about the idea that I want to show. I say, okay, now it's time to stop. Now it's time to blend some things and make them real and stop trying more things. Um, but yeah, in this specific book, the first versions, I mean, the reason why I decided to change the first version was just because I didn't like the way the light uh, worked with a specific kind of paper, and then I changed to other kind of paper, but I didn't like the way it felt when I turned the pages, and then I did another version, and it was like, I don't really like typeface, I want to change that, and it happened like that. But it's just because I don't find things.
Well, I love thinking out loud with your hands. That's like it's such a fruitful way of framing that process, right? And I don't plan, when you ended up with the book that you knew would be the final one, and then we were filming it, were there, and even the postcard in the end, when you had the final version, were there things that still surprised you about the way they worked, or were there things in the process of making them that really surprised you?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it's just that when you work this way, I believe that everything becomes like a little miracle in a way. Like everything is like, I really don't know if this is gonna work, but let's see if this works. And so talking about this book, when we were actually like um, like doing the video, I I was just like so happy to see how much that book changes when you change the yeah, this like this thing about the lighting of the room, and if you have like a completely dark room, you see some things. When you and when you added those lights to the room, it was like, oh, this is a completely different piece because you can actually see my hands in the video,
Mm-hmm.
and you see more layers of the book, and there are like interactions that you didn't notice. So I I I, I do like I would like to say that I don't have like formal training in anything that is not music. Like I've studied music my whole life, but the rest of the things I have learned like by trying things. Like sometimes my parents like teach me things because they're very also like I have like a very crafty family, so I learn from them a lot. Uh, but it's not anything very formal. It's just like let's try this and let's do this. Um, so everything, yeah, as I said before, everything becomes like a surprise that it works, and that makes you also feel very like humble in a way to like we never know what's gonna happen, and I mean in life,
Mm-hmm.
um, but that also makes the things that we like and that we love um, very special maybe. And about the postcard, it was also um, like I had these elements that I had like needed and sewn, and I had like all these little things. But then you took the pictures, and that was like another thing. And then making that into the actual postcard. And again, I have to say thank you and Kasia for making everything so magical in your process, because everything becomes so special when you put your hands into it. Uh, and I don't know, it's like seeing this thing that I had like drawn and needed, suddenly seeing that into a printed product. It's such a different experience, but at the same time, you're like I'm so happy that it is another way of experiencing what we created.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but everything is a nice surprise in this kind of process.
Beautiful. And I want to share again because you mentioned, I don't know how much detail, but so Maria hand stitched these words, and then there are these crocheted flowers, and then we photographed it. And it was stitched onto tracing paper. So there's this really lovely kind of gauziness to it. And you can see like the trails of thread behind it in such a beautiful way. And that's what she created for the front of the postcard. And on the back, she has a little handwritten poem, and there's some instructions for how to fold it. And then it becomes this extra beautiful box. And I think what's really special too is that when people receive this, the way Maria planned it out, your name and address will be right there too. So like you become a part of this box.
Yay!
It's, it's such a beautiful thing. Um, well, those are the things that I mean, thank you so much for sharing all of those beautiful ways that you think about your piece and this kind of tapestry you've woven between the two. It's been such a joy to see it unfold, and I'm really excited to experience it. So again, thank you, Maria, so much for everything this month, and we're very excited to share your piece.
Oh no, thank you and Cassia for everything that you do for this amazing project. Oh, I'm just very lucky to be working with you here.
Our pleasure, absolutely. All right, well,
Thank
I'll have
you.
you around. Thank you so much.
Bye.